Dear friends, I'm glad to see you all on Feigin Live. It's 22 p.m., Tuesday, 12th of April, 48th day of war. We're talking with Alexey Arestovych again. Glad to see you. We're about 90,000 watching us live. 9,000 already liked us. So once again, everybody who has not subscribed yet, more than a half is watching me without subscription, so please do not forget to subscribe. Same thing, if you're watching that in English, please do not forget to leave a like and subscribe to the privateer station. And of course, you can also subscribe to Alexey's channel. He is posting these videos on his channel as well. It is important. Let's start with some of the main news. How did Medvedchuk get caught? He was taken by the security service of Ukraine, who, let's put it delicately, was looking for him and have found them. He was in Kiev? No, he was not in Kiev. And President would need to spill more details on that, and we will comment after that. He will tell you all more details. Him or the head of Service of Ukraine Security. So there are rumors that he paid money, that he was trying to flee the country, that his security was there, but leaked it, maybe? So we'll learn about the details. How did he run, if he ran, who paid whom, and how did he do that? I'm afraid that the popular version that spread like a wildfire on the web, that the presidential office Tatarov had helped him to flee, that will be far from reality, because, how should I put that? The office actually asked to get him, or requested the security service to complete the mission. And that was the office of the president. So, yeah, it's the president's order. We should discuss, there are more details there, because Medvedchuk is a valuable resource. He is rather valuable regarding intel on Russia, preparation of the Ukrainian resistance, communication between the guys that are in Lefortovo in Russia, that have been jailed. So there is a lot of intel that may be obtained from this specific person. Not just try to be cool and tell everyone, hey, I'm a thug. All right. So, what's up in Mariupol? You and me yesterday, I need to mention to our viewers that when we were doing live cast, there was a news on the Azov channel that there was a chemical attack. Of course, we could not discuss it during the live cast because you need to check and verify things, and we're trying to discuss facts that are checked. So today, one day passed. What can we say about that? Did they really try Iprit or something like it? Well, look here. To define it, if it was Iprit or Zarin, you need a lab. Azov got something dropped on them. 3 of them have suffered. Symptoms were defined by the doctors from their medical service. Can we name it that a proper chemical weapon was used? I would not take that risk. And NATO gave the same judgment today. It looks more like a test to check the reaction of the world society and other countries on that. On one side, it looks like a test, like a small batch of chemical weaponry. but it is a smaller effect, smaller size. I like the reaction of the West. Stoltenberg said that chemical weapon use is a high escalation, which will be responded to by the West. So I think Russia got the answer they were looking for. I think they got the answer to their experiment, what will happen if they will escalate that. And besides the part that 3 guys got injured in Mariupol, I do like the outcome of it and the stern reaction of the West. And I have to mention that Dvornikov, who is now managing or leading the whole operation, he actually is known in Syria for using chemical weapons there. So there are some parallels. What else can we say about Mariupol? Can we say that it's somewhat under control? This is not the first time. We have to say that back in 2014 we had people marching near the Ministry of Defense with slogans, burning flags, burning effigies, and claiming that Ministry of Defense needs to be disbanded and fired. I had people coming to me saying that I'm the relative of people who are of soldiers who are fighting in Mariupol. What can you tell me? So, some people do not see a difference between us and the office and the enemy who is actually killing our soldiers there. We are part of the society. Me, just like anybody else, has friends. I have friends there. I have really close friends in Mariupol. So I believe that this attempt to pit different sides of society against each other, each of us has friends and relatives. Some of them are dead, some are wounded, some are still fighting. I think this attempt to pit us against each other will fail, because we're all part of the same. And I've seen some videos from Mariupol. It seems like people are tired, but they look tough. They're still fighting. Azov and military, they seem very tough there. I do admit that defense of Mariupol is one of the most glorious pages in the recent Ukraine history. And we can remember examples from the Second World War. We can go back to the Second World War and look for some examples there. There were maybe some Germans who were defending their territory, but we don't want to bring them as heroes at this moment in history. But our guys in Mariupol, there are different kinds of defense. Our guys defending Mariupol demonstrate a really high level of professionalism. I will not say how many of ours are still defending the city, but there are about 19 battalion tactical groups attacking them. You can practically take any one of them who is still fighting and give them a Hero of Ukraine order right there. Also, defense can be different. And they also managed to assassinate or kill 4 commanders of Russian troops in the area. It's about a quarter of all the Russian troops in Ukraine. They're pulling onto themselves. So if they would not be pulling these 19, they would be fighting other battles along the Eastern Front. So, glory and respect. What about the other parts of the front? Any changes on the east? No real changes on the front, but there are changes on the information front, which are really noticeable. So right now it seems like it's going back to norm because it's less points of attention and nobody is really waiting for Russians sneaking near our positions. It's maybe emotional. People are emotionally reacting to things. So in absence of active tactical news, Russian services are throwing in some data to trying to swing on the news, swing those people who consume all that information. Some of our not so bright or perhaps bot channels are also adding some fakes. So some people are pushing us to fight with each other over Mariupol. We have seen the ugly sides of war. And some people are trying to make money and make political careers on the situation that the whole country is worried about, like Mariupol. But, war is war. You know what military are doing? They're fighting in very difficult conditions with a much stronger enemy who had a strike group with noticeable numeric advantage. I'll tell you more details about the preparation to that war after the war is over. Some of them are still classified. So some things happened that our people did not notice or did not realize that they're related to war, actually were part of preparation to that campaign. So when those are declassified and I tell you after the war is over, you'll be pretty surprised. And what I can say is that people like the ones fighting in Mariupol have broken all these preparations and technologies that Russia was trying to push on us to win this campaign faster. At the same time, there are others who decided that this is a perfect time to play on the torn hearts of Ukrainians. People who completely push to their limit emotionally when they find assassinated civilians, and the ones who were also raped, or the ones who were held in improvised brothels and again forcibly raped there. And then there are some people on our side who use the situation and who push it to the people that was done because Ukraine gave this territory to Russians. They also helped Medvedchuk to flee, and they also did other things. So a simple citizen who is overwhelmed with emotion may react to that irrationally without checking and verifying which part of that is true. So what is psychological informational warfare? There is a simple test for the quality of the officer who can conduct psychological operations. So you call him and tell, what is the target audience in that area? He can give it to you. And the next question is, what is their psychological trauma in that area? And if he names it, he's a good man for the job. In Ukraine, one of the main traumas is the partisan group with a person who is leaking to the enemy, except for the Western Ukraine. And Ukraine is a nation of counter-intel, counter-operation. People developed historical mechanisms how to defend from that. So what is the difference between an intel and a counter-intel officer? Intel officer is looking for friends among enemies, and counter-intel is looking for enemies among friends. The most logical, most intellectual citizen in Ukraine between three versions, that it happened just because, it happened because the person is stupid or made a mistake, or it happened because he's working for the enemy. Ukrainian, most often cases, will pick the third version. So we'll see if Medvedchuk will shed some light on these actions. But all that PSYOPs, they do work on these deep traumas that most Ukrainians have as an archetype thing, and they do work on the collective subconsciousness level, and there are politicians who are using that, who are actively using that and abusing that feature. And then there is another connection. This condition is hard to tolerate, so it needs to be channeled somewhere, and they do channel it to the presidential office. I hope things will come down a little, especially after arrest of detainment of Medvedchuk. Maybe, but I'm skeptical. Look for the information channels for at least a couple days or a couple hours and see where it leads. I understand it's risky because he can start speaking, but he can say very different things. And we'll see. There'll be meetings and discussions, and then they'll start spilling or maybe interpreting what he is saying. And one of them, you'll see that things are being played when you see the note, and everything is not so simple with his arrest. You know what? If I could, I would love to ask him questions. I have questions about the Spanish pedophile, about my status that was taken away from me. You know what? If you have questions, leave them to me. I'll make sure I'll transfer them. I'll give them to the person who will be interrogating him. What is your full name? Mark Zakharovich. So now you have a lucky chance. Please create a list of questions and we'll make sure we try to get the answers. Vita Medvedchuk, you're fucking done. Yeah, so you do want him to feel the iron hand of Mark. Of course I do. I do have some really good questions for him. What else do I want to say? Today, on the 12th of April, Putin was meeting the potato Führer, the leader of Belarus. I was laughing about their meeting related to space. You know, back in the day, Belka and Strelka, those two dogs that were sent, I'd send these two to space with one-way ticket. So, on that meeting, he did mention that everything is following the plan by the General Command, that they're not going to change the operation, they'll continue. Of course, Bucha, he also stated that Bucha is fake. It's British Special Services who staged it. And the third thesis, he's basically saying, let me quote him. He's going back to the version with the United States again. Many people are saying that United States are eager to fight till the last Ukrainian. That is true. That is what Putin is stating. So I think that is the way he's trying to channel his country. Blitzkrieg did not happen. Our economy, regardless of that, is still strong and will prevail. What can you say about the atmosphere of that meeting if you watched it? Is hypnotizing himself? Because it does look a bit aloof. Everything that he says is detached from reality. There are many things there, Mark, that I want to interpret, and many people will appreciate what I want to say. But I want to say that there was one thing that is touching upon both of us. How many people did we dedicate yesterday to the fact that Russian command is killing its aviation? And what did Vladimir Putin say today? He did mention today that Air Force is acting professionally, performing their missions. So the answer to that is very simple. Either him or his speechwriters are watching us and commenting our accusations. So we want to say hi to all of you from Kremlin who are recording us, and our dear viewers who ask us questions, who manage the statements that Putin makes in his speeches. So my hypothesis is as follows. There is a decision in Kremlin that was made. They were not sure, but they decided to continue the war. There is another side to this hypothesis. And it is, I have a feeling that Vladimir Putin wants to end with the generals. I'll explain why, because I think he cannot not know where the war is going. He did, I'm basing that on the Chancellor's statement, Austria Chancellor who talked to him. So he does know where it leads in the statement and everything that's in war, what's happening there. He's informed, so there are only two conditions to continue this war. One of them is to realize that Ukrainian army is about to fold, or that Europe and United States are not giving us weapons. So we're getting weapons and we're all right. So that means that the troops that are attacking us on the east are guaranteed to suffer defeat and losses. Not on this phase, not immediately, but as more Western armaments will be flowing into Ukraine. You can find more details in many open sources. And there is nothing to hide really that Europe also voted today to give Ukraine weapons for $1.5 billion, and that includes heavy weaponry. Germany, our troops on the front already have interesting equipment. So I think Vladimir Putin wants to get rid of his own army. I think he put Dvornikov there for a reason also. He wants to get rid of him as well, because his reputation is of a dumb soldier. So you know Russian army back from the Chechen war. Why would he want to get rid of Russian army? I would say maybe to get rid of their influence. Maybe I think he wants to get rid of the military party, a military group of interests in Russia. Why do you want to get rid of them? Perhaps he thinks they're dangerous? No, I think they do not understand things. Let me try to explain it. We're trying, we're heroes. They're not paying us money, and they're adding a contractual obligation that if you refuse to partake in war, that's a criminal offense. But regardless, we're still heroes. In Russia, about 80% support operation, meaning supporting army. And now let's see that with Putin's eyes. Who had more than 80% of support in Russia? Putin. He was the only one who had that level of support. Right now, there is another subject in Russian Federation that has over 80% of support. That's Russian army. So remember that classic book where the car cannot have two drivers? So one of them is extra. One of them is not needed. And Vladimir Putin, although he knows that the military action is futile on a grand scale, of course they can advance 20 kilometers, surround somebody and destroy somebody, but in general it's useless. So that reminds of a Chinese leader at the end of Chinese and Vietnamese war when he decided to get rid of the military authority. So you have to be dumb to not see the parallels with the Chechen wars where very similar things were happening. That was a small army with a small cleansing back in the Chechen campaign. Right now, the cleansing will be big. After Bucha, after everything, I'm thinking you will be done with by your own leadership. So, basic soldiers will likely be killed at the battlefront, And generals will pretty much be executed, hung by the balls, or whatever they do with them now in FSB. Not in any political system, not in the United States, not in Vatican. None of the political figures can survive with, none of the systems can survive with two leaders, two somewhat opposing leaders having 80% popularity. Just think about it. On the background of the whole world and West supporting Ukraine with the best weapons, that you're all sanctioned through, that you do not have enough people fighting, despite that Surkov and Beseda those generals are arrested, and the 3 military generals were removed, FSB generals were jailed. You still believe that you will win that war, and you continue advancing or trying to do that? The goal of this offensive is to bury you. And that is why. Because there cannot be two subjects in Russian Federation with 80% popularity. One of them is not needed. God knows, if they're watching us, there are real people there that are on the line now. There is Rudskoy, there are others. I do know a lot of them. Some of them I know in person. I can say hi to some of them and say, hey, Alexander Vasilievich, think thoroughly on that matter. Right, all you need to do is really chop the beard of that villain, and everybody will be happy. So it will be up to them, it's their choice to put their neck in the guillotine, or perhaps be a little smarter and a little faster. So that's one side of the whole thing. The other one is Lukashenko. What is happening in Belarus? He was pushed again by Russia to try to attack the north of Ukraine. So, personally, as a Lieutenant Colonel, I want to address the President of Belarus. You have a title of Colonel now. That title is given by the Minister of Defense. Before the Colonel, you cannot get Colonel Lieutenant. Here's the problem, though. Putin gave you that title, and you somehow decided to accept it. Why do you want that? Because you're military right now, and you can be given order from Russia to cross the border. And then you don't know what happens if you give this order if they give this order to invade Ukraine. Your military may slap you on the shoulder and say, Alexander Grigorovich, congratulations, you're getting another military rank, and you'll be celebrating it together with Medvedchuk that just got arrested, because we think Belarus is not really going anywhere. We're good where we are. Basically, there is that with the Russian push to press Lukashenko into the war with Ukraine, he is really literally facing a coup possibility with his own army. I think he's good with all the logistics support that he provided Russia, with missiles and tanks and everything. So now, jokes aside, I think he'll not attack. I think, at some point, if Putin will have no other action left, he might get rid of Lukashenko and just put somebody instead of him. Well, here's the problem. You don't know how Belarus people will behave themselves after Lukashenko is gone. Because right now they're saying that Belarus is following partisan traditions. Why the elite Russian troops got destroyed near Akhtirka? Because over there, their counterparts were the old Gusars. That's one of the oldest historical traditional warfighters, even back in Napoleon days. And these are the people who have their legacy and their families and their history. 2/3 of that detachment were local, were Ukrainians back in the day. So that is the same settlement that Russian tank brigade failed to take and could not achieve any result in this direction. So a similar story here in Belarus. They do remember that they are the famous partisan land. My cousin grandpa was the leader of one of the partisan groups in the area. He was a cousin of my grandfather with the same last name, Arestovych. In Belarus, they're reporting a railroad war, and Russian troops have very difficult relations between Russia and Belarus. And one of the Belarus girls was raped by Russian soldiers, and that's recorded, and they're saying it's not the single case. So imagine that Russians take Lukashenko down. What would be the reaction of Belarusians? Do you think they'll be happy? Yeah, I'd say one of them would be happy. Some of them would be happy. What if instead of him they put a different leader who basically lets Russian troops as occupation troops? And that's where Belarus would probably say, no, we are against it. And there may be another front against Russian troops. So I predict that Lukashenko will be preserved because they know that he is really important for them. That's like in that movie that we both know. No, dear, you will not kill me now. You will be protecting me now, because you know who I am. So he's very specific. Lukashenko is a specific figure in this theater. It is very inappropriate for Putin to take him out. Do you think he actually made a decision that he will join the war? He already mentioned that it seems like Ukraine is refuting their Istanbul positions. He's refuting their Istanbul positions. And and Ukraine is being played by United States and Europe and NATO. So many people are reading the comments by Mikhail Podolyak and other participants of these negotiations, and they have to express themselves diplomatically. Here's the thing, I'm reading comments of Podolyak when he is sitting to the right of me and writing them, but it's only President who can comment Podolyak. It is not exactly my right, but I can elaborate on what he was stating publicly. The negotiations are very difficult, and the Ukrainian side is struggling to achieve what we want. It appears that Russian side is manipulating the public opinion by throwing things in the information field. So, why to even continue negotiations if you are throwing your own people into fire? What's the reason for negotiations? Well, he is a KGB guy. We've been talking about the success on the battlefield in order to finally conclude the negotiations in a most favorable way. He is not really showing anything, but he is stating that Ukrainian side refused or violated our Turkish agreements. Okay, your next logical step would be to stop the negotiations as a punishment to the Ukrainian side, but guess what? They're still continuing. So that is really just manipulation. They're really interested in negotiations. All right, so we'll continue tomorrow. We can discuss Podolyak and other things. About 300,000 people watching us live. We're seeing each other tomorrow, right? Yes, we are. Again, my request, everybody please leave the links to this cast in their socials, subscribe to mine and to Alexey's channel. If you're watching this in English, subscribe to Privateer Station. And see you tomorrow.